Hello, I am Rodney Chenault. I am one of the owners and I'm the broker at the Twin Hickory office. Today we're going to talk about the listing agreement and all the forms that go with that package. The top of the form is pretty simple. Page 1, you need to make sure you have company name, address, your broker. So on this particular form, you'll see my name is there, my phone number, but whichever office you're located in, your broker and their phone number. The exclusive right to sell, very first paragraph, you are going to make sure that you get the actual owners of the property names in that spot. The way you're going to determine that is pull the tax record from MLS, have the tax record, ask the seller, hey, I see that there's another owner on here. Get an explanation if there are more than one owner on that form. That make sure that you have the actual owner of the property. Everybody that's involved, if it's an estate, sometimes there could be 2 or 3 heirs that needed to be listed there, but the tax record may only show one. So just make sure of that. The time frame, the blank that you see there, that's how long the listing agreement is for. We try to tell our agents to get 180 days if possible, but that is a date that is negotiated. You can do 30 days, 60 days, 90, but if you can get 180 days, that'd be great. Moving down a little bit, the next paragraph, pretty simple. You plug in the county or city that it's located in, address, the tax parcel ID. You want to make sure you get the right number there. That is also found on the tax record. And then the legal description. So plug that in that last blank. Paragraph 2, this is where if you have any personal property that is going to remain with the sale of the home, you can list those items there. You can see I put washer, dryer, and the fridge and kitchen. That could be tool shed, pool table, whatever things that are going to be included, you can plug there. But you don't have to put anything there. You can leave that blank if you like. And then have the buyer ask for something in their contract. Listing price. Pretty simple. Plug in the listing price. The paragraph below that, A, B, and C, those things often, nothing goes in those blanks, but if there was something special that the owner wanted to give, a $5,000 bonus or something like that, you could plug that in right there. Paragraph 4 pretty much says that the owner is okay with the home being in the multiple listing service. That is how we sell homes, obviously. We want the home listed there so all the agents in town can find it on the computer and hopefully show it and sell it for you. Compensation, our favorite paragraph. Basically, this says that the seller or the owner is willing to pay hometown we're going to plug in 6% in that box. Always make sure you check the box, plug in 6%, that's what our company charges. The box below that, oftentimes people are confused. It clearly says that the 6% is going to be paid to hometown. If there's a co-broke sale of the 6%, 3% is going to go to another agent. So in that last paragraph, you plug in 3%. One thing that will come up, if somebody asks you for a reduced commission, you need to talk to your manager, okay? We've got a lot of objection handlers, how you can handle that, but you need to talk to your manager. If it's a past client, you've done a bunch of deals with them, and you want to cut them a break, if your manager okays it, if you have a scenario where, let's just say that total commission is 5.5%, we always want to offer, it's hometown policy, we're always going to offer 3% to a co-broke agent on a co-broke sale. We want everyone in MLS seeing 3% from hometown. That's our standard. If you took 5.5, you as a listing agent would make 2.5, and the other side would get 3%. So that pretty much covers the first page. Now, at top of page 2, dual and designated agency. That is pretty much your discretion. We don't tell our agents that you cannot do dual agency. A lot of agents choose not to do it. Obviously, dual agent means you're representing the buyer and the seller, and you have a very fine line that you have to walk down and make sure you're basically neutral. You can't advise the buyer, can't advise the seller as to what they should take. You're basically just a neutral party delivering information back and forth and having the paperwork done. The next box, you certainly want to have designated agency. We've got over 300 agents at Hometown, and there's a good chance one of them may be working with the buyer that wants to buy your property. So we would have a designated agency form signed showing that Hometown's representing the seller and a different agent from Hometown was representing the buyer. But those forms, those boxes there need to be checked. Paragraph 7, the Property Owners Association. You need to ask the seller, hey, are you in a Property Owners Association? You can always check MLS. If it's in a neighborhood or in an area, you can see what the other listings say. However, oftentimes I'll look in MLS and there'll be 10 houses that have sold over the last year, and 5 of them will say it's in a HOA, and 5 of them will say it's not. So somebody's right, somebody's wrong, but you need to make sure you do your research and determine if it's in a Property Owners Association. And then you, as the listing agent, need to be responsible for making sure that HOA package is ordered and delivered to the buyer as soon as possible. As we know, the buyer has 3 days from receipt of that package to cancel the contract. So the sooner you can get that package in their hands, the better off you are. Condominium, pretty simple. If it's a condo, you check is. If it's not a condo, check the is not box. But you need to make sure, because sometimes, you think it's a condo, but it's a townhouse, so you might have to do a little research there as well. Paragraph 9, the internet and other media. That basically says that the owner is okay with the home being seen on the internet, on all different types of other media. The more people see it, the better chance you have of selling it. That box that you see where it says opt out of the internet, you only put something in that box if they do not want the property to be seen on the internet. So in 28 years, I've not had anybody not want the home on the internet. So you're going to leave that box alone. Right below that, it's a paragraph that says that the owner either authorizes or does not authorize the listings for somebody to allow third-party comments, and below that it talks about allowing automated estimate of value. I think we say that you should probably do authorize on both of those, so the seller needs to initial both of those boxes there if you want the home to be seen on Zillow, Trulia, all those different websites. That's why that's there. And when you have the listing input form, you'll see where you have to mark yes on that. So if you put yes on all 4 of those boxes on the input form, then your home will be out there on all the different websites available. Paragraph 10 talks about the listing contact and the intellectual property assignment. Basically, you want to say that you check the box that you do want to assign that to the broker. That means all the pictures, the videos, the virtual tours, everything that you create is property of you, the broker. Paragraph 11, lockbox. You definitely want to try to have a lockbox on every listing you have. I would, sometimes a seller will say, well, gee, I don't want a lockbox. People are going to be coming in my house. It's a very safe system that we have. You can have it set up to where you use showing time. The agent has to send a request to you. You can okay it with the seller and then send back the confirmation. But it tracks who goes in the box, when they arrive, when they leave. So it's a very safe system and allows the home to be shown when you're out on appointments or on vacation. It's just definitely the way to go. So you want to request the use of a lockbox. And if you have a termite inspector that you use that has a lockbox key, this authorizes, you could say that they authorize the termite inspector to also use that box. Or, the seller needs to let them in, or you need to be there to let them in. Next page, page 3. Disclosure. Basically, it just says that the Virginia Property the Virginia Property Disclosure Act is applicable. The only time that that's not is if you have an estate. An estate doesn't have to sign it, or if it's a corporate deal, the corporation doesn't have to sign it. The lead-based paint addendum in paragraph 13, that says that with any home that's built prior to 1978, the lead-based paint disclosure is required. I always say, hey, if you see 78 on the tax record, that's where you would go to determine the year built. If you see 78, go ahead and get that lead-based paint disclosure filled out. Always better safe than sorry. On paragraph 14, the septic system, you need to ask them, hey, do you have, and we have a form I'm going to go over in a second, but do you have public water, public sewer, or are you on a septic system, or are you on a well? So you've got to ask some questions of the seller. As you can see here, the property is not serviced by a septic system. If it was, then it asks you whether it's a conventional system or an alternative system. The alternative system, you need to get some information about that, because that requires different inspections and often requires maintenance. So you need to do a little research with your seller there. Paragraph 15, the home warranty insurance. We want to offer the home warranty, the HMS warranty that's in your package. We've got the brochures all in the office. Offer that to every listing that you take. Also, you probably want to ask your buyer, when you're writing a contract for a buyer, do they want to ask for a home warranty? So if the seller decides they want to do the home warranty, you check elects. But if the seller says, nah, I don't want to offer the home warranty, if the buyer asks for one in the contract, maybe I'll give it to them. Then you check declines. But it's simple to make sure you ask them that each time you take a listing. Paragraph 16, recordings within the property. It basically just lets the owner know that, hey, if you're doing any kind of recording, it could be a violation of state or other laws. So you just need to let the seller know. So many people have cameras and all that stuff these days, so let the seller be aware of that. Enforcement, paragraph 17, that says that if the owner were to sell the property to someone else within 30 days after the expiration of this agreement that you had brought in or another agent had brought in during your listing term, you could still be due the commission if that happened within 30 days of the expiration. However, all bets are off as soon as that seller signs a listing agreement with another company or another agent, then that paragraph is voided at that time. So it does give you a little protection to kind of keep you from getting cut out of a deal. And really from paragraph 19 on, those are all standard provisions that go with the contract. They're pretty standard. They talk about fair housing. We're all going to abide by fair housing. It says that they're okay with you putting a sign on the property. I'm not going to read every one of those or go through all those, but those are standard provisions that apply to every real estate deal. And you should really read this form, know it inside and out, so you can talk about it like I'm talking about it right now when you're in front of a seller. Paragraph 21, it says that we're okay and it's perfectly legally binding to have electronic signatures. So you're going to have the seller sign and date. Keep in mind that the date that goes on this listing agreement, you have 3 days from the 3 calendar days from the last signature date on this contract. Sometimes you may have a seller that's local, somebody that's out of town, and it could be a week's difference between when you get the contract signed by all parties. The last signature that goes on it, you must enter that in MLS within 3 calendar days. If not, you'll be fined. When you put the listing into the system, the list date is not the date that you're actually putting it in the computer. The list date is the last date on this contract, okay? So you got 3 days. If you put it in 5 days later, MLS could very much fine you for that. All right, at the bottom of the page, you will see that it says signature of broker or authorized agent. We as the broker authorize you as the agent to sign that listing form. So you can sign that, the sellers both sign it and date it. The big thing is you need to make sure you deliver a copy of these signed documents to your seller. So if you're at their house, you get all the paperwork signed up, you don't have a copy to give them. When you get back to the office, scan and email them a copy. Anytime a client is signing documents, they need to have copies and always acknowledge that they confirm that they've received it. So that pretty much covers the listing agreement. Now there's several forms that go along with the listing agreement that we talked about. The lead-based paint addendum. Any house built prior to 78 or even in 78, we need to make sure we have this form filled out. The address goes at the top. You need to ask the seller, hey seller, do you have any knowledge of lead-based paint? If they do not, in paragraph A, you'll check that box right there that the seller has no knowledge. Paragraph B, you need to say, hey seller, do you have any reports of any lead-based paint in your house? If they do not, then check the 2I there in paragraph B. Now, for a purchaser below, you will see that what we want you to do if you're on the purchasing end of this, paragraph D, the buyer needs to initial that they've received the pamphlet of Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. Make sure they get that packet and they initial that paragraph D. Then in paragraph E, the buyer needs to decide whether they want to receive a 10-day opportunity to check the house out for lead or they want to waive the opportunity to check that out. So those paragraphs have to be initialed, D and E, by the purchaser. And then paragraph F, you as a listing agent need to initial saying that you've asked the seller the questions and they're aware that if they know of lead-based paint, they need to tell us. So you initial that paragraph as the listing agent. And this is one form that both listing agent and the buyer's agent need to sign, obviously along with the buyer and seller. If you have these forms filled out, this form and the property disclosure, which we'll go over next, those forms, you should add those to the listing agreement. You can upload them to the supplements, and that way if somebody's writing a contract on your property, they have those forms, they can pull them down and have the buyer sign them when they're doing the purchase contract. Where you find that, just so you know, if you look in MLS, the little picture of the house, right below that, there's several icons. And if you see the one that looks like pages, just hover over that. It says supplements. Click there, and you can see the lead-based paint, the property disclosure. Those things are there for you to sign. All right. Next page, the property disclosure agreement. Most every home is going to have this agreement. Like I said, if it's an estate, the executor is not required to fill it out. If it's a corporate or individual or corporation selling the property, they may be exempt from this. But if you have a question whether you should or shouldn't use it, you're never going to hurt yourself to have this form filled out. More disclosure is better than none. But the property disclosure basically just says that, hey, here's a website that the buyer can go to check out anything about the property that might be on record. And we want the buyer and seller to sign this form. And this must be part of the contract package when the deal is done. All right. Lastly, that goes in relation to the property disclosure is also a summary of rights. It basically, under the Property Owners Association, the Property Disclosure Act, buyers and sellers have rights, and it just goes through and explains all the different things with the deal. It pretty much sums up, that says, hey, the seller, if they know of something wrong with the property, they need to tell you, but it's up to the buyer to check the property out for themselves. Gives the buyer the right to do the home inspection, gives the buyer the right to check the website, see if there are any sexual offenders in the area. It's not up to the listing agent to find out, hey, is that property across the street, is it zoned commercial? Or the buyer needs to do their own due diligence on those things. But we want to have this summary of rights signed by our client on every listing and every purchase agreement. But take some time, read through that, and understand that that form needs to be included on every buyer and seller that we work with. And the last form is the UST Water and Sewer Addendum. The reason we have this form is we talked about asking the seller, do they have a well or do they have septic? Oftentimes in older neighborhoods, there could be a situation where one house is hooked up to the county water and sewer, and maybe somebody decided, well, we're not going to pay that fee, we're going to stay on the septic system. So when you go look in MLS, you could see houses that say public water and sewer in that neighborhood, but the person next door may not have hooked up. All your newer neighborhoods, they're required to hook up. You know, the builders do that when the homes are being built. But some of the older neighborhoods, it wasn't available when the neighborhood was developed. So the counties later came back and offered county water and sewer to those areas. And sometimes people hooked up to them and sometimes they didn't. So we're going to ask all of our sellers, hey, Mr. Seller, Ms. Seller, do you have public water? Do you have public sewer? Or is there an underground storage tank on the property? Often older houses had oil tanks, they had oil heat. Sometimes those tanks were taken care of the right way, but sometimes they're abandoned and still in the ground. So we have to disclose that. If we know of an underground tank, we got to let everyone know. So make sure you have this filled out. This covers us, so we have this information. If the seller is unsure, you can call the county or locality where the property is located and ask them, try to find out, you know, are they on county water and sewer? So have this form filled out. It's all part of the listing package. And that pretty much sums up everything we need, and hope you guys get to use a lot of these. Have a great day.